There comes a time in every young startup when you have to do a couple of unsavory things, but I gotta do it. So, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time actually saying this out in public, I'm gonna have to create an Android version. My name is Chris Allen Lee, and I'm here to show you what it's really like to run your own startup, work remotely, and try to balance life all at the same time. All right, guys, this is it. In all my years of iOS development, I'm gonna get real with you. I'm about to do something that I basically have said that I would never do, but I gotta do it to keep the company and Smart Hash going forward. So, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time actually saying this out in public, I'm gonna have to create an Android version. Okay, so all joking aside, yes, the Android version of Smart Hash is officially on the docket. So it's been a long time coming. And honestly, there's two major reasons why I waited this long to create the Android counterpart. And so in reference, it's been about 2.5 years since I started on Smart Hash. So here are the two reasons why I waited so long to create the Android version. One was so that I could focus on the iOS version and actually see if there was a market for the product. It makes sense to focus kind of all of your resources and see if people are actually interested in buying it. There's a lot of companies that actually do that. They focus on either the iOS or the Android version, whichever one they are comfortable with, and start off with that. So it just makes sense to see if people are actually interested in the app before you kind of waste time in building several different versions of it. And the second reason, which probably isn't that great of a reason, is that honestly, I'm just not that familiar with Android. I've been using iOS products, iPhones, iPads. There's actually more to it than the just, not knowing how to develop for it. It's actually being familiar with some of the UI elements. With iOS versions, I know there's just certain ways of how an app should work. You can swipe left to go back, and I'm just very familiar with how things are supposed to work on the iOS side. With Android, I really don't know a lot, and so one of the things that I need to do is to actually buy an Android phone and just become familiar with the UI, how things work, how apps normally navigate through pages and things like that. And then once I'm familiar with that, then I can go ahead and start tackling an Android version. By the way, if you have any recommendations for my first Android device, just let me know. Okay, so kind of piggybacking from a previous episode of how to vet your idea, once you've got a vetted app idea, the question arises, which platform do you build for first? iOS, Android, or web? All right, so let's go over the pros and cons for each one of those. So let's go ahead and start off with web. Arguably the easiest platform to build on. You don't have to learn any new frameworks like iOS or Android. You don't even have to buy an iOS device or an Android device. If you've got a computer, you can build for the web. You can also keep your favorite text editor. You don't have to be coding in Xcode or in Android Studio for both iOS and Android respectively. You can just use whatever you like. You also don't need specific hardware equipment. With iOS, you need a Mac to build iOS apps. For building websites, you really just need whatever computer you've got, and then you should be good to go. And probably the best thing that web has going for it is that you build it once and then it just works everywhere. It's universal. And especially if you make it mobile friendly, it'll work on any device that has a browser. So it'll work for iOS, Android, it can work on your Tesla with your huge screen in there. It'll just work everywhere. With that being said, there is an undeniable preference for apps over their website counterparts, and that's especially on mobile. Even the most user-friendly website doesn't compare to the fluidity and ease of an app on a small device. And on top of that, iOS and Android both have something very unique that their website counterparts don't have, and that is the App Store and the Play Store. So having a search engine like the App Store or the Google Play Store, which is essentially a directory of apps, really helps the chances of somebody kind of stumbling across and trying out your app. So I'll put that into context. For the first 2 years of SmartHash, I didn't run any ads, and I was getting basically organic downloads from the App Store to the tune of maybe 50 plus per day. That's some crazy numbers right there. Okay, so let's talk about iOS versus Android. When it comes to earning more in terms of in-app purchases, iOS is definitely the winner. The Apple Store generates about twice as much revenue in in-app purchases as the Google Play Store, despite only getting half the downloads. But if you're planning on earning revenue through ads, then Android might be the better play. Android still dominates the global market share, which means more potential users, which means more revenue through ads. Even though people aren't spending money on in-app purchases or subscriptions, you're still getting more people downloading your app, and that means more money through ads. Back to iOS, Apple has been known to be very strict when it comes to their approval process and their closed system, which can make some features difficult or even impossible to build on. Whereas Android can be much more flexible and developer friendly. But honestly, at the end of the day, whether it's web, Android, or iOS, to me, the major criteria that you need to look at on whether you're deciding between these three is whichever one you're comfortable with, whichever one that you actually know how to build on, because that's what's going to help you get the product out there faster, see if there's a market for it. Getting your app out there as fast as possible and seeing if it resonates with people is probably the most important thing. And so whichever platform you're most comfortable working on, use that one. If people love it and people are asking you to build it for a different platform, that's a good problem to have. So there's just a few tweaks that I wanted to finish up on the iOS version and the web version before I move on and actually start the Android version. But I just wanted to put the vibes out there, let it out in the public that I'm actually putting the Android version on the docket. It's something that I need to accomplish. And that way I can kind of get the social pressure of people like saying, hey, is it done yet? Is it done yet? When is it gonna come out? And that'll actually push me to get it done faster. So if you're out there and you're wondering where the Android version is, just reach out to me and be like, hey Chris, what the hell are you doing? Why isn't it out yet? And hopefully the social pressure will be like, oh God, I need to get it done. At least I hope. I don't know, that's how I work. We'll see how that goes. Catch you guys in the next episode. Hey guys, if you liked that video, don't forget to smash that like button. You could also hit here to subscribe to the channel. If you want to see other videos in this series, you can click down here. Or if you want to support me, go ahead and click the link in the description. Try SmartHash for free.